Okay, Mark is going to regale you with the legends and folklore of Samhain and Halloween, stories of fairies and ghosts that we in the west of Ireland know to be true. So, sit back, relax if you can, seriously, and enjoy this unique experience made possible by Dr. Alan Klein and his Sheppy Dog lecture fund series. So, Gur Mahagad, Alan, wherever you are, thank you for bringing Mark over to us. And we do have a full house tonight, which is amazing. So, if you will all join me, let's welcome Mark to the stage.
Keep going a little bit. So. I'm just lazy, so I'm sitting down. I'm going to start just by explaining that Irish storytelling, the Shanachie tradition, is very conversational. So when we tell stories in the museum, or even as a people, it's very conversational. It's influenced by the people that are there as well. So I'm perfectly unprepared for this. I never have to see any of you again. I can apologise by email if I upset or offend anyone. But this is so strange. This is so surreal for me. Having met Dr. Alan Klein like a year ago, coming into the museum and be like, hey, you know what we could do? You could come over and tell stories. And I was like, yeah, I can do that. And I was like, seeing the room, and I'm like, ooh, that's bigger. And they say size isn't important. So I can tell you, as a 5'6" man, there's no point in me lying about my height. I work in a Leprechaun museum, it's actually. But this is very different. It's very different, but there's a lot of similarities between what we're doing. When I say we're doing tonight, it's collaborative. Feel free to throw out a question or throw food onto the stage. Actually, I don't really feel to be looked after very well. But storytelling in Ireland was something that was done by the people of Ireland. There was two very distinct styles of storytelling in Ireland. You have the Shanachie tradition, which is, these were the purveyors of old tales. It was an itinerant storyteller, no fixed abode. They wandered around the country, they'd knock on your door, you'd think, oh, feck, it's them. Because you have to feed them. And you know what I mean? We're a people who didn't have much, you know? We had to feed them, we had to give them a little sup, a little drink. I'm not sure also how the languages or the accent is going to translate to a lot of you, but just keep doing what you're doing. Just nod, smile, giggle. Clapping at the wrong point might make you seem like awful people. There'll be a lot of talk of death. And, you know, because they're like, yeah, he died. Yeah, woo, he deserved it. But when the storytellers come knocking on your door and you bring them in, you have to make the best of it. So we invite our people around. You know, you invite your family, you invite your neighbours. And it's, you know, it's not the guys who live upstairs, you know, in the apartment or the semi-detached next door to you. You know, people travelled miles, you know, to come walking like dark country roads and walking along. I've seen some great photographs of people walking along. There's a great image in the National Photo Archives of Dublin of 3 women in their 70s walking along with stools. And you know, you don't know how far they're after walking, but they're coming along to listen to the storyteller because there was no Netflix. We didn't have a place like this to kind of come together. There were set places that you met. Pre-Christian Ireland was a bit different, but we had mass, which was great. It was a chance to judge your neighbours. Whose shoes aren't polished. He's practically the devil. Shunning baby Jesus like that by wearing that dress, that's disgraceful. But you know, the people would travel and come around and come together as a people, and everyone brought something. Everyone brought a bottle, everyone brought a bit of food, and they came together and they shared it. You know, and then they listened to the storyteller. And the reason I was delighted that the guys were so accommodating with having this as an adult's look at storytelling, because the children were in bed, like, you know, an Irish home, 19 of your children are asleep. In the corner. Yeah, we've no television. the storytellers didn't come around that often, so making babies was like a pastime. You just had the kids in the corner, like you'd have like, you know, if it's bad weather, which, I don't know if anyone's ever been to Ireland, but that's weather, that's what we get. You'd have like a calf, you'd have like a baby cow being brought to the house, one, to keep the calf warm and dry and safe, but also to serve as an electric blanket for your children. But the kids were all asleep and the adults would gather together and they'd share stories, and sometimes they would join in as well. And I think one of the main ingredients for good storytelling is suffering. And no, that was a bit where it's being serious. It's going to be quite poignant, and then you somewhere over there giggle. It is though, you know what I mean? And it's weird coming from Dublin, which is like the capital city of Ireland, you know, but that's still not that impressive, you know what I mean, of a country of like less than 6 million people. You know what I mean? You could fit 3 Irelands into Michigan in terms of the land mass. But there's a lot of commonality that I've noticed, and I have family living in Michigan. My cousin, his wife, and his 2 kids live in Ada. I think, are you here, by the way? You unsupported bastards. I literally travelled, I was up for 27 hours the other day. And I guarantee, actually, are you genuinely here? Emily, Caroline, Jennifer, Tony? Tony won't be here anyway, he's just not ours.
They might be looking for a parking place.
They could be, yeah. I'd love if he was outside and couldn't be here. Because there's no way he would have chosen to come here tonight. He would have been like, come on, it's family, you have to support family. Family's important. I'll see Tony at a funeral soon. Mine if this goes wrong. But yeah, no, family's important, blah, blah, blah. But what I'm saying, like kind of coming in here and being shown around and even seeing how this institute works and looking at you can come in, I was just talking there to a couple of guys, you can come in as someone who's never picked up a pencil before and you like drawing classes, you know, and you can then like go on and forward and then you've got these incredible pieces, but there's such an amazing community feel, you know, and let's be honest, you guys know what it is to suffer, you know? No, you do, you know, which...
We've been since the 90s up here.
Yeah, no, I get that. Yeah, but you're looking at the 1990s in Ireland, it goes back further. We've literally been suffering since the 90s. You know what I mean? And that's still modern for us. To give you an example, right, I'm not going to tell leprechaun stories tonight, but the first written leprechaun story was written in the 8th century. And that's when it was written down by monks. And it's actually a story that's too filthy to go into with you guys. Let's put it this way, you've never heard of a female leprechaun. Okay? Queen Bebo of the Luchor Pond from the great island of Faelin is described in the story as being 3 fists high. And she has an incredible 3-night relationship with King Fergus MacLeod, a human king. There we go. 50 Shades of Green. But to give you that, like the leprechaun is an immigrant to Ireland. We understand immigration. You know, we understand it. We have, sorry. You know, we came over en masse. But we understand what it is to be out of place. You know what I mean? To be out of time and not have what we need around us. It was great having Sarah here. Sarah earlier on being handed a packet of sausages. Hey. Being handed a packet of sausages. We know what it is to be uprooted from what we have. I ended up telling stories in the museum because I was made redundant twice and I have 2 kids and I need to put food on the table. I took the first job that came along. You know what I mean? So we get it, and I've realised then kind of being over here that you guys get it as well. And you also have such incredible enthusiasm for our culture. It's not deserved. It's not. Admit it. We're known as being friendly. You guys beat us on that, okay? You know what I mean? We're known for our art and literature. I'm walking through this place, I'm like, no, you guys are, like, we've gone a little bit stale at times, you know. You guys are still doing, you're still producing, and that's incredible. But you're so enthusiastic for us, and you always make us feel welcome. You know, you get some Irish people who are bitter, people coming over and saying, oh, I'm part Irish. I'm like, brilliant, which bit? Show me. Lift your trouser leg, I want to see that Donegal ankle that you have going on. but you do, and Halloween is one of those things where, you know, we say Ireland is the birthplace of Halloween. It's not completely true. It is at the basis for so many of the traditions. But you also have the likes of the basically Day of the Dead featured into that. Anyone who celebrates death and rebirth can claim a little bit of that. But I have to say I'm particularly grateful for the introduction of the pumpkin. Thank you for that, because we carved turnips. A spiced turnip latte is a lot. It's not. Turnip pie. No, none of that works. But you'll get people who are quite, you know, elitist and, you know, very protective, and they just claim this ownership and they won't share. You know, who will kind of poo and kind of look badly on people taking it and making it part of pop culture. You know what I mean? Taking this religious holiday and making it into this kind of commercial aspect. But you know what? That's when you sit together. The weather's getting worse, you know what I mean? You actually get to spend time indoors because it's horrible out. You guys get snow now. I learned that. You've got snow the last few years. Congratulations on that. Christmas must be better. Christmas was awful. We didn't start Christmas. That was the whole Jesus guy. He did that. Was he Irish? I don't know. Apparently Obama was. So why not everyone say Jesus Christ? Again, like I say, I never mean any offence with any of this stuff. I am genuinely really nervous. And I want to say something to the nervous people in the room, and Sarah, again, you were terrified with her, but you did an amazing job. Actually, can we round of applause for Sarah? I think I used now the thank you pennies. Sorry, only Irish people will get that reference. But I was a very shy child. Okay, I was not like this. I had a brother who was my hero, 7 years old. We had 3 sisters. It's a very small Irish family, that I realise, a 19 children joke, but that's where I came from. And I kind of went back into my own little world, you know. I was saying I told stories to myself, and there is no telling stories without an audience, you know. It's not the same thing. And I threw myself into art, which was amazing to get to come to this incredible place as someone who studied fine art and sculpture, you know what I mean? But carving stone and working metal and wood with a chainsaw is hard and expensive, and this is free. I'm a lot more comfortable saying that considering none of you paid in. But it is free, and you know what I mean. To those people, I was terrified. Even now, just before coming in, I am still petrified that there's so many of you here. It is just, I don't know, it may be a social condition that's getting me through this. But it is, like, I think telling stories is so important, and you should tell stories. I'm going to get to telling stories now very shortly. I just need to pour myself some water. But how many people, hands up, because I can't see you. So pretty, all of you. I don't want to tell you all where I'm staying. Where was I going with that? Yeah, how many of you, raise your hands if you knew that Halloween was an Irish tradition? And don't put your hand up because the person beside you did. Okay, like that's a really good number. What you have to understand about Halloween for the Irish people is that it is Samhain. It's one of our 4 festivals. You guys are never going to celebrate Beelzebub in Balg or Lunasa because they're not sexy. They're just the words themselves just aren't. But it's that thing that people love about being scared and the dark and not knowing and understanding things. And I can't talk while drinking. I'm not Jeff Dunn or something. There is that thing about like the change in the seasons, you know, and Samhain actually is our new year in Ireland. It's a big festival, it's our harvest festival. It's when, you know, things change. Your working hours changed, you know. You finished your day a bit earlier, things were getting darker and it was unsafe. You know, the cattle came down, you lit fires. Fires are a big thing for all of our festivals. They're all big fire festivals. And yeah, we're spending more time indoors and with our people. And the tradition around Samhain was, it was this time of year when the spirits could roam free in Ireland. You And some people saw that as a scary thing, like death. Death was the thing that we should fear. Hey, guess what, everyone? Yeah, we're all going to die. Not here, not tonight. At least not all of us. Statistically speaking, there's a good chance we're going to lose someone. It's probably going to be if I Lady Gaga off the stage. The adoring fan, who was probably that lady who asked where I was staying, will tackles me and drags me to the floor. Again, I'm okay with that. But again, this is how we deal with nervousness now. We make jokes about things, and we were really nervous people, because for us, our gods were flesh and blood. The Tuatha the people who came before us, they were an actual people. Has anyone here been to Ireland?
Yes.
Okay. Anyone happy about the fact that they've? Okay.
And your museum.
I apologise. Hey, was that recent?
2017.
27. Oh, we're better now. Better now. I'll stop doing tours. I'd get brought halfway around the world to tell stories nowadays. But where are we going with this? This is why we don't script anything. This is what our storytelling is. But yeah, our gods were flesh and blood. If you travel around Ireland, you see so much evidence of this other world. We've got over 60% of Europe's megalithic structures in our, sorry, I'm slurring my words, in Ireland. And the reason they still exist in Ireland is purely fear and ignorance. You know, I know I don't say that in a bad way, but we didn't understand the things. You know, that what you need for stories is you need a place. You need a place for a thing to happen. You need that thing to happen, and you need someone to witness it. Okay, that's how you make the thing, and then you have to tell the story. You guys have a place, and you have people, and you have an audience. You guys have just as much, you know, a reason to be storytellers as we do. In fact, your urban legends are out there. I picked up Haunted Flint in the shop here, and everything's haunted, it seems. Literally in Ireland, like we're raised with this one ghost, the Holy Ghost. And we had to give everything else different names, so we weren't calling them those things. But we believe that at this time of year, that was when the veil was thinner and these creatures would come back and walk the land. And a lot of it was really positive. You'd welcome back your loved ones, you know. And again, that's not particularly just the Irish culture, but these other creatures, these other peoples, they could walk the land as well. And we realised, and we remembered that there was a point where we took the land from them. When the Gaelic people invaded Ireland, they fought against the Tuatha. The Tuatha were pushed into the other world. You know, that's why you have these ancient hills, the fairy hills and fairy forests, literally everywhere in Ireland. And you can't dig them. You can't go down a fairy tree. You can't go down a fairy tree because if you do, someone in your family's going to die. And the fear was very, very real. So we learned how to protect ourselves. You know, we learned things that they didn't like. How many people here have ever seen someone spit on a hat? Actually, did that. That was sorry. How many people have seen someone spit on a hand before making a deal? You've seen people do that? Okay. Any one of you here could be one of the fairy folk, one of these otherworld people. They could look like us. They wanted to land like us. So we had to find ways to identify them. And if I was selling you a horse, okay, I don't know you. You seem lovely. You seem really nice. You might be awful. I don't. You seem nice. If I was selling you a horse, I would spit on my hand. If you refuse to shake my hand, it's a sign you're one of the other people. They couldn't touch dirty water. So that was brought about as a way of identifying. You wouldn't make a deal with that person. The lucky horseshoe, I always, oh no, I lost my pin. Did I actually lose my pin? I did. Oh, it's on my other jacket, and I forgot to put on this one. Jesus, now bad luck for me, this is going to go horribly wrong. But I fly home in 2 days. The lucky horseshoe is one of the most recognised symbols of luck in the world. And people talk about the luck of the Irish. Nowhere will you ever see the slogan, the good luck of the Irish. No, it is. You just have to look at the history of our country and the suffering that we've been through. Again, we have that in common as a people. We fought for what we have, you know. And the horseshoe was literally, it was nothing to do with luck. The otherworld people didn't like iron. They were driven into the earth. We saw the iron as the blood of the planet. Very, very powerful idea. And we would hammer pieces of iron into our front doors. Coffin nails are way more effective than horseshoes. You got to dig up a coffin, take the nails out. That's effort. We're lazy people. Whereas the horseshoes were commonly discarded, you can rework the metal a certain number of times before it was brittle and useless, and we discard them. So we hung them on the front door. People talk about you hang it this way, the look stays in. You hang it that way, the look falls out. You can only spare one nail, it hangs that way. If you have 2 spare nails, you're showing off. We literally say, because we reuse everything and we had no choice, that's what we had to do. So people would walk around with slivers of pure iron in their coats, the wealthy people of Ireland, or iron clasps of iron jewellery. But this is how real the fear was, that if you happened across a stranger, and bear in mind the amount of trading going on within Ireland and people moving around the country, if you met someone who was, you didn't recognise and they were different to you, you genuinely thought there was a chance they were the wrong people. It was very, very real. And we carried iron with us, and people used dirty water in different forms. And girls going out to a dance hall on a Thursday, Friday night, the father would take his thumb and dip it into the master bucket, which is the toilet. You did Mark put on back in girls' coats, but the coat became a status symbol. It was a sign of how popular, desired a woman was. When you turn up at the dance hall, the guys would see the girls with the most marks on her coats. She clearly went to all of the social events, so that's who you asked to dance. But again, the coat was passed down from mother to daughter. If you got married, it went to your sister. It was this is why I need you to understand how real this belief was, because the stories can be funny and sad and dark, but we're coming at this from a very different place to the Grimm's fairy tales, and these great stories written by incredible authors. The stories I'm going to tell you are the stories of the people of Ireland, okay? Not the educated man, just the people in their homes who couldn't read, couldn't write. They're the stories I'm interested in, because I like to tell the stories to people, and you guys can probably read them, right? But you get my point. There's not going to be an exam during this anyway. In cursive, everyone has to do. Nice handwriting. I failed that anyway. Good with numbers, though. Dramatic pause while I take a drink. Just really so I can remember what I'm talking about. Actual water. So a story that I want to tell you guys is about, what story will I do? It's about Halloween night. And it's a story that I absolutely love. It was actually written by Ireland's first president, okay, Douglas Hyde. He's one of these people who saved their stories. We've always relied on people of influence to be able to kind of, get in front of us and support us when it came to protecting our culture. But it's the story of a young guy called Tygo Kane. And Tygo Kane was the son of a quite well-off Irish farmer, and he was the only son. And Tygo Kane was a notorious playboy. All he did was go around drinking and gambling. He loved the ladies, and his father thought eventually that he'd settle down. And Ty thought that himself. He thought that there'd come a time, where he'd take over from his father, but now wasn't the time. And tomorrow wasn't the time. It never seemed to be the time for Ty to settle down. And he was just getting into more and more trouble. He very rarely saw his father. He never slept in his own bed. He always managed to find another bed, or barn, or quiet lay-by. And he never spent any time in his own house. But news came back to his father that Mary, a young girl in the town, had fallen pregnant, and that Tygo Kane was the father of this child. And this was too much for the father, so he summoned Ty back to the house. And even though Ty was like a grown man, in his 20s, the father dragged him into the house. He said, "Enough is enough, Ty." He says, "I've heard what you've done. This girl's from a good family. She's a lovely girl. She's better than you deserve. She deserves 100 times better than you. And you're going to marry her." And Ty was like, she's a good looking young one. And I do like her, and she's definitely someone I could see myself settling down with when I decide it's time for me to settle down. The father said, "Well, I'll help you with that decision," he says, "You're going to marry her, or you are getting nothing more from me. You're cut off. I'll give the land to your cousin, to my brother's son. He'll get it. And I know you don't like him because he's a gobshite. But I would rather he got everything than give it to you for you just to squander and go around breaking up families and doing damage. Now, Ty did not like being told what to do. And like he said himself, Mary, if he was going to marry anyone, Mary would be perfect, you know, for now. And, but he was furious, so he stormed out the door, and the father was like, come in, you can't be out there this late at night. We'll talk about it, in you come. And he just stormed off, and Ty was screaming, you know, back at his father, and he can't tell him what to do. He's a grown man, he lives his own life, and he doesn't need his father for anything apart from the money, and eventually the land when the father's dead. But Ty was off, you know, and I've done this. I've left the house after an argument as a kid. I ran away to under my stairs usually, but I hid at the end of the row of houses, you know, waiting for my family to come looking for me. They never did. They knew I'd be home as soon as it got dark, or I got hungry, which usually I got hungry before it got dark. But Ty stormed off, and he's walking, muttering himself, getting angrier and angrier, and he starts hearing voices, and he thinks it's his father coming after him, except for the voices are coming up ahead, further down the road. And he doesn't recognise the voices, and he doesn't recognise the language. And he's like, Jesus, it's the French. It's the French, and this coming over here and stealing her women. Haven't been with them all yet. And then he recognises the language. It's kind of like Gaelic that they're speaking. And then he's like, oh Christ, it's ESL. It's the 31st of October. And I'm out walking the streets when I should be safely tucked up in my bed. And he thinks, it's the good folk, it's the wee folk. And he's just standing there until he can see them. And he can see about knee-height, these people, you know, coming up the road, and they're dragging something, and putting something heavy with them. And as much as he wants to run away, he's just still there, just staring at them, thinking, why am I not fucking moving? I don't want to be, why am I stuck to the spot? And so they were practically on top of him, and they just go to him straight away, Ty O'Kane, look at you out and about, is it you? And Ty's like, no. Like Ty, we know it's you. You've been up to no good. We've heard all about you and your shenanigans, what you've been up to. And the guy who's been talking to the head of the good folk is turning to us. Listen, he's telling us he's not Ty O'Kane. He's gone very quiet there now. He's not only bragging about his great deeds and who he is and what he's done and who he's done. And suddenly he's a bit tight-lipped. And Ty is terrified, you know, face, because he knows you don't mess with these people. You know what I mean? They're good folk is what they're called, unless you disrespect them. And if you've lived a bad life, they like to teach people lessons and punish them. And again, he knows they're dragging this heavy thing behind them. And of course, Ty finally gets the feeling back in his legs, and he turns to run, but they race straight after him, and they knock him down to the ground, and they jump on top of him. And then they drag the big heavy thing over to him, and he sees it as it's coming towards him, and it's a corpse. You know? And he's pinned to the ground, they're holding by the arms, they're holding his face against the ground, and they're holding him by the legs, and they drag the body onto his back. And as soon as the body's on his back, he feels that the arms clench around his neck and his chest, and the legs grip around his waist, you know, feels the shins digging, and the smell is something unreal. And they get off, and he let him up, and he gets himself up, and he's like, get it off me. And they're like, no, this is your punishment. You'll do our bidding now. He said, we were going to have to take this unfortunate soul, we were going to have to bury it, you know, but you're going to do that for us now, and we're going to make sure that you do. You've already tried to run off once, but I'll tell you, that corpse is not coming off your back until you've done exactly what we say. We want you to head off now, continue down the way you were going, and when you come to a church, we need you to go into the church and lift the flagstone. And if there's not already a body there, there's a chance there is. We want you to bury the body there, and then you'll be grand, you're free to go home. But if there's no space for the body, we want you to go to the next church and bury the body there. And if there's no room for it, okay. And you're going to go to the next church. But if you don't have the body in the ground by sunrise, it's going to stay with you forever. And that kills the mood. And you try dating with a dead body on your back. It's not impossible, in fairness, if you're, you know, there's still ways. There's still people out there with really low standards. Christ. But Tiger's he's terrified, he's furious, he's trying to get this body off his back, but it just grips, and the guys just start kicking at his shins and telling him, off you go. So he heads off, trekking, you know, towards the church, and the body's just gripping him. Every time he tries to shrugs it off, it grips a little tighter onto him, you know. And he thinks he can almost hear this muttering coming from him, but he's thinking, it's just the air escaping from the body. But he's going on his way, you can see the guys behind, there's nowhere to go, so he thinks, I'm going to do this. So I'm going to do what they've asked and get it done and gone. And he gets to the first church and he goes up to the door, big heavy door, and straight away it's locked. He tries giving it a little kick and it's not giving way. The next thing, you know, he's like, I'm going to have to go to the next church. But the body draped over him says, would you not have a look? Would you not have a look for the key? And he's like, it's a good idea. But he's terrified that this creature has spoken to him. And of course he reaches up and he finds a key on top of the door. Everyone just, I mean, why? The key is there, and he takes the key and he turns the key and the door opens and in he goes. And he sees the flag, and he sees the spade. I mean, I love our first president on the side, but this is a very convenient story. He sees the spade leaning up against the altar, as I'm sure you've all experienced. Clearly some work's being done in the church. And he goes over to, I'll use this box, this is great, the electric thing here is great for me. You can't see it, but this helps me just to get into the space. And he gets the edge of the shovel, the spade, he gets down to a crack between the flagstones. And he's working away, and as soon as he gets that one up, it's easier, because then he can lift down the next one, and he starts digging down, and he hits something a bit soft, and a bit kind of podgy, and it's not soil. And he digs away, and next thing is this face is exposed, a bit of a torso. And it screams at him, get away! Get away from me! And it sits up, and he just hits it with the shovel, kicks the dirt on top of it, and he puts the flagstones back on. And he tries on a few different flagstones, and it just seems there are just bodies everywhere. There's a perfectly good churchyard outside. But he's thinking, no, do you know what, I'm going to leave that there. And I'm going to see if we've any more luck with the next church. And he goes out, and the guys are all, of course, at the gate of the church laughing. They knew there was no room in that church. The wee folk are having it's a good night for them. They really did well to find Tig on the road that night. And he continued on to the next church, because he got close to the next church, you could hear this cackling and cawing, and it sounded like crows, until he got close enough that he could see that there was ghosts and spirits and creatures all lined up on the walls around the church. If you've ever seen birds come together like that, you know, on walls, and they're all calling at the same time, it was like that. And when he took a step back, like changing his mind, they faded away. And he took a step forward again, and they came up again, and he thought, I'll brave through it. He took another step, and another step, and it was getting tremendous. The sound was deafening, it's become quite threatening. And he's like, I can't, I'm just going to have to skip this church. But I don't know where I am, I've never been in before, I don't know where the next church is. And suddenly the body on his back just points above the finger. Really old GPS. Following like a compass. He's quite a helpful corpse. He follows the corpse on until he comes to another church. And he goes in to the church. It's not much of a church at all. And the way the church floor is done, there's no flagstones, there's nothing to dig up, but he sees around the back of it there's a little grave. This little graveyard, tiny little thing, you barely know that, just piles of stones, and as he walks around to it, he sees there's an empty grave, freshly dug grave, sitting there. And he goes over to him, he looks in, there's a black coffin sitting in the grave. He's terrified, he's still got this lump on his back, you know. And he gets down into the grave, and he doesn't know why he's on fire, but he pulls open the coffin and it's empty. And as he does that, like he's pulling it open, you can feel the corpse sliding off his back and down into the coffin. And it pulls the lid close on it. Gives him a little, I don't know how you wink when there was no eye in it. Just did that. Just moved its head. It winked. And the coffin got pulled closed. Tig knew then he has to bury this. He's got to put the soil back on top of it. But as he gets up there in the hole, he sees the halo of orange light forming on the horizon. And he panics and he's just clawing with his fingers. He's filthy. He's in his good clothes. He'd just come in from a night out, remember. You know, his father pulled him away from some gambling. And he pulled the dirt in on top of the body. And the cockerel crowed just as he pat down the last of the dirt. Now, Tig, I think Tig had learned his lesson, but it was first thing in the morning. He was exhausted. He didn't know where he was. He just started walking and thinking about how he'd been and how his father had only been trying to do the best for him. And when he came to this tiny little gathering of buildings, one of them was a guest house, and they took him in, and he had a bit of food, and he went to bed. Like the day, he fell fast asleep, and he cleaned himself up, and he woke up at night. He was exhausted. So by the time he woke up, it was getting dark again, so he stayed for another night. So when it finally came time for Tig to make his way home, as he walked and walked, and eventually right back in his town, people saw him coming in, and they were convinced he was gone. They'd already actually run off, and that he was never going to change his ways, but he went back into his farm and he just embraced his father and hugged him. And he married Mary. He married Mary 2 weeks later. She was happy to have him. And Douglas Hyde, our president, ends it with saying that Tig never had another bad day in his life. He was content and he was happy. And for me, that was strange, to see that such an awful story and this death and the humour of it all, to have a happy ending. Because generally we don't in our stories in Ireland. And I'd love to change the end of that story, but I can't, because that's how it was done, and he was our president, so I have to live with that. But Tig O'Kane in the Corp is a great story. But it shows you the very real fear of the people. It's not a grand story. You know what I mean? It's a very, very simple, basic story. And that's generally the stories that I like. And okay, you had the good folk appeared in that story, but not all our stories are like that. Not all of our stories are funny, and not all our stories are nice. And when I'm telling stories like that about people of a time gone by and how they were afraid of it, I was like that. And again, I grew up in a not particularly nice part of Dublin. I grew up in the foothills of the Dublin Mountains, just an awful little area there, which is just known for that's where you go to get your stuff back. Okay, that is, you want a cheap television. One previous owner. Yeah, I mean, even for me, growing up there in the 80s, as I said earlier on, my brother was a lot older than me, and I looked up to him as being one of my heroes. And I just wanted to be my brother. My father would be overseas with the UN, serving in Lebanon and Cyprus, serving in Congo and all that. So my brother was my big male influence in my life, and I just wanted to be like him. I just wanted to hang out with him all the time. And he used to go up the mountains every summer to this place known as the Hellfire Club, which was Montpellier House, a beautiful old stone hunting lodge built in 1725. But they'd have a couple of cans of cider between them, these 15, 16-year-olds going up the mountains. And I just wanted to go with them. And I remember, like that dog that follows you home from the shop, I imagine that happens to everyone. But I remember trailing behind with my brother, and I'm following his friends up the mountains, and he must have thought that I would give up at some point. I don't remember, but I'm sure there are occasions where, like a reverse game of chicken, I would not continue to follow him. I would make my way home. But on this occasion that I remember, and I can tell you what year it was 1986, and I was 9 years of age, because my dad was away that year. And I was following my brother and his friends up to the Hellfire Club, and I got to a point where there was this field, and the guys stopped and they waited, and I can't remember what they were doing, if I'm being honest. I could make up something very entertaining, but I won't. They were standing at this wall, and I caught up with them, and my brother says, you can come with us. You can come right to the top with us if you can run across this field. Now, knowing what I knew, we had this thing in Ireland known as the hungry grass, which is fairy land. And if you couldn't build on this land, you couldn't graze your cattle on this land. You graze your cattle on it, they literally would waste away and die. No crops would grow. The house would be, if you walked across this land, you would be dead by the time you got to the other side. And my brother told me if I could run across this field and make it to the other side, I could come up to the mountains with him. My brother was awful. And I was like, yeah, I can do this. I can do it, absolutely. I can make it. I can make it across this field. Anything to impress my brother and his friends. And I jumped that wall. I probably realistically climbed over. I was a fantastically beautiful, chubby child. And like Jerry O'Connell would stand by me. I was that kid. Yeah, people got that reference. Brilliant. And I ran like I never ran, and have never ran since in my life. You know what I mean? And I ran across, and I could hear them. And there was a guy called Nicholas Turby, who was my brother's friend, who was going through a late puberty. And I could hear his just cracking scream, which went between sounding like the rest of the guys and sounding like my sister when she found a spider. And Nicholas Turby was screaming. I could hear them all, and I thought they were like cheering me on. And I ran. I remember when I got to the other side, I jumped the wall. I took half the wall with me. And when I jumped, Ireland had the first walled farms in the world, by the way. Our stone walls are amazing, you should see them. And I jumped this wall, and just the screaming, and I got up triumphant, I got up, climbing up off the ground and like looking over the wall back at them. And I saw why they were screaming. There was a bull in the field. I'd like to say I was wearing red, but I'd just be lying to you. But what I want you to know from that is like, okay, the danger was real. There was a bull, the danger was real, and the screaming was real, but for me, the fear that I would waste away and all the fairies again. That's what drove me. That's what drove me. And again, I'm not that old. Do you know what I mean? We're not talking about like going back centuries for these stories, you know. And they're stories that we grew up and we lived with, even in Dublin. Somewhere sophisticated like that. Not like the Midlands. Hey Grace. Or Sligo. Hey Sarah. It was something that was very real, even for me kind of growing up. It was a big thing. Now, I go down to Dublin every now and again. I used to go down to this wonderful camp down in Cork. I realised later in life that the camp was actually respite for parents. It wasn't a holiday camp for children. It was run by the Dominican brothers, and they took in the children who were a handful. We were sent down there just to give our parents. And my mum was like 5 kids, my dad was away, but I was the child that got sent away. And you guys have already probably figured out why that is. But we used to go down to this camp, and it was amazing going down there. And I remember, and again I can tell you the year, it was 1984, and it was July 1984. And I was down there for a week, and every night they'd have a disco one night, where all the boys would sit on one side and all the girls would just like no one would talk to each other. And we'd have a disco one night, we'd watch a movie. I remember watching Fly the Navigator one of the years, that was amazing. I wanted to be that child. And then we'd do a cliff walk, and we'd go to a Norman tower house, which everyone seems to call castles. No, we don't have that many castles in Ireland, genuine castles. We have lots of Norman tower houses. And we used to go there and we listened to stories, and we listened to storytellers. And there was this amazing storyteller who was there. And I remember, and bear in mind, I do the math, I'm 7 in 1984. I know I don't look like you could possibly be that old. Wasn't meant to be funny. Horrible people here. Life's been tough. But if so it makes me laugh. Sorry. So I love there actually being people. Telling stories to people is so much better. But yeah, I remember this night and listening to this story. At night, it was in the evening. It wasn't even all that dark. We were still gathered around the fire, and they were telling all sorts of ghost stories and stuff like that. But then the storyteller started telling the story, which had a massive impact on me. It's actually a big part, probably, of why I'm sitting here as a storyteller. She started telling the story about this woman, Mary O'Rourke, and I was like, oh, I know her. Because my mum had a friend called Mary O'Rourke, and I was like, oh, I know this lady. Yes, like I may even feature in this because I've been to her house. But do you know what? When the storyteller described Mary, it sounded like this woman that I knew. You know, she lived in a little house on the outside of the town. Not by herself, she had a husband, but like an awful lot of men back in the day, they were off travelling fairly constantly. You know, he was a salesman. He had a particular route. If things were going well, though, he could be gone for a year. You know, and Mary lived there by herself, and the storyteller described her as just being such a beautiful, just wonderful woman who, when she went into the town buying her bits and pieces, everyone said hello to her. Everyone had time for Mary. But strangely, she didn't have friends, you know. She'd cook and she'd bake and she'd make things for the local church. She'd always drop in a present when a new baby was born. You know, she was a wonderful person, but she, you know, don't feel sorry for her. She just sounded very content in her life. She'd go back to her little house, do her bits and pieces, and she'd write these letters. She'd write in letters, paper. She'd write these letters to her husband because she knew his route. She knew most likely where he was going to be, or at least where he would be, you know, soon. And she'd post off these letters, and she never complained about anything, you know. She was just one of these happy, good, kind people. And I was like, yeah, that sounds like Mary Ó. Apart from the fact I know her husband and her children. I went to school. But this Mary, she had no children in this story. Her and her husband had never been blessed in that way. But again, she was so happy and content with her life. She'd write these letters to her husband, and he'd send these letters back to her. And she loved getting them, you know. I remember the storyteller said a line, something like, you could feel the joy in her words when she wrote to her husband. And that was, even at 7 years of age, that was beautiful. At that time, I was writing to my father in Lebanon, you know. And I was sending letters to him every week. So I was bought into this story. But one day, Mary got to send an incredible letter to her husband. Mary was with child. Mary was going to have the husband's last visit. Obviously, there was a magical night or afternoon, depending. And she sent a letter to her husband saying that she was pregnant, and by the time he got home, the baby would be born. It only just, probably a few weeks old, depending on when he got back, but he'd come back to a family. And she continued to write her letters, and she got letters back, and she described that, you know, the morning sickness and the stretch mark and the pain, but all of it, she just said it, and every single thing was a blessing. She described to her husband. And the pregnancy went fine. I know what you're expecting from a story to go. The baby was born, beautiful baby boy, everything had been perfect. The midwife came over and delivered the child, the baby was great. And Mary was getting used, it only took a few days to get used to the noise of someone else in the house. You know, she just took so naturally to it. But she was getting ready for her husband to come home. And it was actually the night before the husband was due home. She'd gotten the letter. He kind of finished up, you know, as quickly as he could, was making his way back. And she was cooking bread. The whole nesting thing had taken over. She was prepared. She went out cutting wood. Mary was a horse. Do you know what I mean? I think if the Irish Army was made up entirely of Irish mothers, do you know what I mean? There's no competing with them, you know what I mean? They're terrifying, and they get stuff done. Mary was out chopping the wood. She probably built a house they were living in. Incredible Irish women are. And she had everything ready, the fire, the logs, the fire was roaring. She probably wouldn't even heat the house if it wasn't for the fact the baby was there. And if her husband wasn't there, she was there herself. She just put on an extra coat. Do you know what I mean? Why waste the wood? It's such a familiar idea to people, isn't it? But she had everything was perfect, everything was ready, and she went into the kitchen, she took the bread out, and she walked back into the room, you know, with the big table there. She walked by the fire, and she could feel the heat off the fire, but she couldn't hear the crackling. And then she realised she couldn't hear anything. She couldn't hear her own breath. She tapped the ground, there wasn't a noise, and she thought she'd gone deaf. You know, but then she realised she couldn't hear the noise of the baby upstairs. And while she knew it was probably just something very simple, she needed to go and check on her child. So she headed upstairs, she headed towards the room, the baby's room, the room, just one room. And she went in and she looks in and she can see the baby, you know, she can see the crib. She can see the windows closed, didn't want a draft, you know, but the baby's, she can see the blanket rise and fall, the baby's perfectly fine, breathing away, but she still can't hear anything. She's just looking at the crib and the moonlight spilling in the window, hitting it. And I don't know if anyone's ever been around babies, but they're amazing. They've got toes, little toes, and cheeks. You can't be around a baby and not want to like, sounds creepy when I say it. And they're just, that's, okay, the dead body of the guy's back is fine. Thanks for letting me know where the line is. But she wants to go over and check on the child, so she makes her way on. She doesn't want to disturb the child. She's just tucking the blanket in on the baby. She finds something. She finds a little glass in the baby's crib, and she's like, it's a whiskey glass. She's like, I don't drink much. Or since the baby came along, I'll be honest. Me, not Mary. And she's like, oh, baby brain. I don't know how it's ended up in there, but I'm gonna bring it downstairs. And she's leaving the room, and she's back. She's just going out the door, and she hears, Mommy, you're an awful woman. You're awful cruel. You're worse than the devil himself, Mommy. You're taking me whiskey. And Mary's just frozen to the spot. Mary's grown up in rural Ireland, and Mary knows exactly, that she's heard stories of changing. She knows this is not her child. She turns, she goes, oh, my cushion, my dear, I'm only going to fill the glass for you. You just wait there. I'm going to go down and I'm going to get you some more whiskey. And the creature's still calling after it. It starts standing up in the crib, and the skin is grey, it's licking its lips, and the little tuft of blonde hair it had is now kind of like blackened and across the scalp. And it's got these, even though the light's coming from behind it, the eyes, there's a bit of a glow to them. And she's terrified, Mary is. And she's like, I'm just going to get you some more whiskey. And she heads downstairs. And as soon as she walks into the room downstairs, she can hear the fire again. She realizes, I heard that creature. I can hear the fire. I know what's going on. She snaps and she thinks, okay, that's not my child. She sees the poker by the fire, the iron. She sees the iron and she puts it into the coals, and the creature is still calling down the stairs, calling her awful names, things that Mary never heard before, languages she'd never heard spoken before. But she puts the poker into the fire, she's letting it get hot, and the whole time the creature's calling down the stairs, and Mary's terrified. She's pouring, she's filling the whiskey. She's like, I'm just filling your whiskey now. I couldn't get the bottle open, And she pours a glass of whiskey, and she has it in her hand, and she takes the iron. It's red hot. She takes it from the fire. She puts it behind her back, and she makes her way back up the stairs. She heads into the room, and she can see the creature is there. It's got teeth now, Teeth. The skin is sunken more. It's gotten bigger. It's this awful creature just reaching out its hands and clamoring at her, and she gets closer, and she drops the glass. She drops the glass, it smashes, and she screams, and the creature in the crib, it lets out this awful scream, and it just bursts backwards through the window, shatters the window, and the noise of it hitting the ground, again, I bring you back to the storyteller telling me this. She said it was like a truck hitting the ground. There was no way that creature could make such an impact. It hit the ground, the house shook, and Mary's standing there with the poker which she pulled out in her hand to defend herself against the creature, and she dropped the poker. And the hot poker hit the ground, the wood soaked in the whiskey, and it burst into flames. And Mary's thinking, I've got to get out of there. She turns to run, and she hears her baby's cry. She hears the baby's cry, and she runs over to the crib, and it's not there. And then suddenly she can hear the cry over by her own bed. And she runs over, and as soon as she gets there, she hears the cry coming from by the dresser. The fire is getting bigger, the smoke and flames are filling the room. But Mary wouldn't leave the house. There was no way she was leaving. If there was even a chance, her baby was there. She couldn't leave. And the cries continued. And I'm sure Mary's own cries and screams continued. But when the husband arrived back the next morning, as he was coming through the town and he was getting strange looks, there wasn't many people around, but he was getting strange looks. And he made his way through the town and to the edge of his little bit of land, and he just sees this mass of people gathered around the house. And they see him coming, and he starts to run, and they grab him and they hold him back. His bag with the letters fall to the ground, and they're like, it's too late. They're like, listen, there's been an awful accident. Mary's gone. The house is destroyed. And he drops to the ground, he drops to his knees, he's putting the letters back in the bag, he can't believe what's happened. And he looks up at the man and he says, what about my baby? What about my child? And the man, he looks at the other guy, he's on the other side, he's like, oh, what baby? And everyone starts whispering and starts muttering. And the husband realises, he gets up to his feet, they let him go, and he just walks towards the house. And there's nothing left for him. And he just keeps walking. He walks past the house. And he walks. And he walks. Because there's nothing there for him. Now, I'd love if that story had a nice, happy ending, or even a funny comment at the end, but it doesn't. And to be a 7-year-old who told that story, do you know what I mean? Like, I wouldn't tell that to a 7-year-old. You're laughing now. I'm about to make this an awful lot worse, and I want you guys again to appreciate what it is with Irish stories, because as a grown-up, as a man who kind of has spent a long time reading Irish folklore and writing my own stories and working on stuff, and even 10 years in the museum, when you look at a story like that, and you always try to remove the magic and understand the story, at least I do, but all I see is a story of a lonely woman whose husband was away. And I know myself that there was no child. I know that Mary had created a world all for herself. Like a lot of us do, we go to this fancy world to escape to. And when she realised that her husband was coming back, I don't even think there's another part of that sentence, We all have to think kind of what really happened to Mary. But that's the tragedy, that's the power of belief. And that's the kind of sadness that we deal with our stories, And that's one that, you can't applaud that. I don't. No one clap for that, but just let us sit with you for a minute and just think about why we tell stories. Why, as a people, we tell stories. We tell them to educate, to entertain, but we can also use stories to deal with things that are affecting all of us, And again, we find a commonality when you tell that story. I've told that story before in the museum. I've told that story a couple of times. I don't get to tell stories in the museum all too often anymore, but I remember one day a woman just crying in a dark room with a wishing well in the middle of it and trees around the room, and afterwards just taking a few minutes to talk to her. And I apologised, I said, sorry, that was a bit of a heavy story, especially when you go to a place called the National Leprechaun Museum. You can laugh at that, it's quite clear you're laughing at. Well, actually, but that woman spoke to me afterwards, and you know what? She took the time. She apologised to me for interrupting the story, and she told me how she had recently lost a child. And I felt awful that, but she was like, no, she says, that's how we deal. We have to talk about these things, But it's a lot easier to dress them up in a story, So that's quite sad. That's quite sad. That's an awful story. I feel really bad for telling it. I need you guys all still laugh because you're awful people. And you follow up with another laugh. I see how it is. Yeah, our stories, you know what I mean? Yeah, they do, and it's not just Ireland that deals with it. We all kind of create, art. We have to express ourselves and get things out, and sometimes words aren't the easiest thing to do. And it's not easy to just say, hey, do you know what? I'm feeling sad, I'm feeling anxious, I've got a lot on my plate, I feel like I'm in a bad place. We can't do that. We've seen so many incredibly talented people, and we've seen ordinary people in our lives who just didn't know how to express and deal with what they had going on, and they leave us kind of much too early. And I just think storytelling and taking the time to make eye contact with someone and talk with something that's so important. And it's a great gift to listen to people, to listen to someone, and to share your own experience with them is so important. I'm never going to take this drink. And I still won't. Sorry, I do genuinely feel bad sometimes when I share heavy information, but I was told something important, and if anyone ever wants to actively be a storyteller, you can be a storyteller and never tell a story, but if you ever actively want to be a storyteller, I was told something that was really important to me, which was we have 2 eyes, 2 ears, and only 1 mouth. And we need to listen to people. And we need to look at things that are going on. And only when we've taken all that in, that's when we should speak. You know? And that is so, you know what I mean? It's taking that time. It's taking that time. I've worked with some great storytellers over the years, and I've worked with storytellers who, you know, have really inspired me. Like I've trained them up, but I can't train, you know, Johnny to be Johnny. You know what I mean? I can just help them kind of express and get their stories out. But I've worked with a storyteller who is on the autistic spectrum and who can become non-verbal, you know, and they're an incredible storyteller. But I think what their gift is that they have to be so conscious before they speak. They're an incredible communicator because they have to take that time. You know what I mean? And I can be very, I can be accused of talking too much an awful lot. So remember, I've got like, before I actually kind of found my jam, I was like 17 years on this planet before I kind of felt comfortable talking to people. I'm making up for it, okay? You're laughing, you've travelled to be here. You are enabling me. But I do think that thing about taking time to watch and listen and looking around you and seeing what's going on, that's a really important skill that not just storytellers need, but more people should just take time to familiarise themselves with what they're talking about. Where are they going to try it? Because I was told, what about if people ask questions? If people ask questions at the beginning or at the end, I was like, anyone ask a question at any time during it? I mean, not mid-flow, like when I'm like kind of get to that bit with the baby's voice. But does anyone have any questions?
Do you have a black dog story?
Do I have a black dog story? I've got a really, yeah. Do you know what? I have a really weird experience and story about a black dog, but it starts off really, really weird. And it starts off in the museum when an English lady, I believed, came into the museum and she was talking to Tom, the director, my boss. She started telling him about this story about this leprechaun that was found in a part of Dublin called Dublin back in 1961, just after the release of Darby O'Gill and the Little People. The people see Sean Connery, yeah? 23 years, we're making eye contact now. He looked good in that. Yeah, can't do an Irish accent. You're shocked, she's allowed, like, you know what I mean? Your own, or like, she can look at him and go, yeah, Darby O'Gill and the Little People did an awful lot for Irish folklore in a very bad way. Again, Sean Connery's wonderful, but I mean, he's quite limited at times. I mean, a Russian submarine pilot with a Scottish accent is probably do you know what I mean? Like, I wish I could get away. I mean, there's a level of handsome which I can only aspire to. And then you're capturing it right now with a sneaky picture. I love your hat, by the way. I love that thing. Sorry, the dog thing. Sorry, true to point, my mum would slap me if she wasn't dead. No, sorry. Horrible person. Humour steal tragedy. Yeah, so this lady was in the museum and she was talking to Tom, director, about this story about a leprechaun that was found in the Phoenix Park in Dublin, which is the largest city park in all of Europe. It's also the home of our president in the Eurosceptron in there, and Michael D. Higgins, our wonderful, beautiful little leprechaun president. And the lady's telling the story. Tom actually called me over because I'm from the area where this leprechaun was. It was found in the park. It was brought home by this man. He gave up his job. He had it in a little with one of the old matchboxes, and he would charge people into his house to come and see this leprechaun. These mummified remains of a leprechaun, and his daughter and her best friend stood outside the front of the house, and they took money in. Journalists came from all over the world to take photographs of this creature, and they paid into the house as well. And so Tom calls me over, and I'm like, yeah, I know this story. I'm very familiar with it, and the woman says, well, actually, I was the best friend. She's like, that was me, that was my friend, my best friend's dad. And I had so many questions. And think about who you want to meet and ask questions in the world. I suddenly was facing someone who held a dead leprechaun. Yeah, I had so many questions for her. She was a superstar to me, and I was like, what was it? She's like, it was a leprechaun. She says, no, she says, like, I held the little fingers, the little hand, like I said, its little face and its lips. She says, I saw, and she says, it was a leprechaun. And I was like, what happened to it? You know, what happened with it? Where is it then? Like, can we have it? Can we put that on us? It's better than the box of Lucky Charms we have in the front room. We can take that out. But I was like, what happened to the leprechaun? She said, it's really strange. It's awful. She says, because the dad had quit his job. He was, making a living from this. And there was one night she was having a sleepover, and they were upstairs in her friend's room. They were reading annuals. Is that a thing here? Like the Bunty, 1964 Bunty annual. They were upstairs reading annuals in the friend's room that night, and they weren't going to sleep. And the dad actually was asleep. This is a perfect prop, by the way. Can I have this? The father would sleep in the chair downstairs, and the table was there beside him, and the leprechaun was in the matchbox on the table. And the two girls were upstairs, and she's telling me this, they were up in the room, and suddenly there was this incredible growl coming from outside. But she said they were upstairs, and it was right outside the window, and the whole room went black. And she said they were terrified. They didn't sleep a wink that night. The growl kept going, and the snarling until the sun came up. And they ran downstairs to tell the dad. They were trapped in the room with fear, and they ran down to the dad, and the dad was furious, and he was full of energy because the leprechaun was gone, and he beat the two girls. His daughter, and again, I was hit by a neighbour. You know what I mean? If someone touched one of my kids now, suddenly I'm a little less camp. Mama bear's coming at them, and he beat the two girls. He was convinced that they had taken the leprechaun to play with it like a doll, and they'd broken it and they'd hidden it, and apparently the family, he never worked again. The girl, the reason I thought she was British, she moved off to England, and she's there telling us this story, and I was just captivated by this woman. Listen to this first-hand account of what happened. And I said to her, I says, you do know about the shook, don't you? She said, what's a shook? And a shook in Irish legends is a big black ghost dog. It's a huge thing. If you steal something from the other world, this will come and take it back. And when I told her that, I can almost feel it. She grabbed my arm with both her hands, and she started crying. She says, that's what it was. She says, I didn't know. She says, that's what it was. She says, it must have been that it came and it took the leprechaun home. And she kissed my face more than anyone I've had a romantic relationship with. You know what I mean? There's such passion, unrivaled passion she was. But the relief and the release she got from that, and that kind of closed it off for her. I continued to listen to her talk about when she was in London, going to the pictures with her sister, and they saw the banshee down the side, combing its hair down the side of the picture house. It's amazing to hear somebody use the phrase picture house. And she went home after the movie to find out that her granny had passed away, and then she told her mother about the banshee. To them, that was it. That was the real. The banshee was there. The grandmother was dead. That's the way it is. But that with the large black ghost dog, that was amazing to hear. But when that woman left, and I was just taken back, I actually had to go and sit down in the office. One of the storytellers was like, we should have recorded that woman, which isn't really what it was about. But then I started thinking about it, because I have this thing, unfortunately, where I have to break down what's actually going on there. And I think about the Phoenix Park, and I think about all the unfortunate women in Ireland who had children, who weren't married, who had no support. I think about the laundries, and I think that wasn't a leprechaun they found in the bush in Phoenix Park. It would have been fetal remains that they found. But am I going to go and tell that woman it's not a leprechaun and tell her what I think it is? No, I'm not that. I'm not that arrogant, you know what I mean? I wasn't there. But again, the tragedy of the real side is absolutely horrible. Not really a story about a big black dog, but that's probably like, because I'm very familiar with the puka and creatures like that and the big black dogs, but that was the one that was really, really important to me. So any other questions? Oh, we got two, but I know you, so.
So you started to mention that Can you tell another?
I can talk, yeah. I can talk to you a bit because my understanding of a banshee is very different. You know what I mean? I had an incredible ingrained fear. It's going to come back to my brother again, by the way, guys. It's coming back to my brother again. Yeah, the banshee is completely misunderstood by people. You know, the banshee, this scream of the banshee, you know, it's keening, it's funeral singing. It's a great honour, it's a show of respect. She's not a serial killer. She was once, you know, they were the most beautiful women in Ireland, where the ban is the Irish word for woman, and she is our fairy folk. So it's woman of the fairies. And they were gods. And when the two of they and our gods were driven from this world by the Gaels, she stayed. She stayed to show the way to the other world, the people who passed. And it's a beautiful idea, but people's attitudes towards death have changed. When death was a great honour, she was beautiful. She is a physical embodiment of people's attitudes towards death. That's the way I understand her. And of course, as began to fear death and become terrified in her last moments, she becomes this old-hearted woman. But it's actually a great collection of stories by a guy called Michael Scott, not the guy from The Office. Michael Scott was an Irish author who lives in the States now. I think he's in Maine, and he wrote one of his short stories was The Legend of the Banshee. And I know the last paragraph of that book is, humankind had nothing to fear from the last remnants of a once proud race. Even now my power wanes, I wander the banks of this mighty river, seeking, searching, waiting for someone to spare a kindly word. I've been waiting for centuries, I doubt it will happen now. Soon I'll be gone, and only the legend will remain. And that's beautiful to me. Like, that is like, there's a character that's being used and misused and bastardized so much. But I also understand the fear, because my brother is a dick. Pardon my language. And I will tell you why my brother is the way. I actually can't tell you why he's the way he is. I don't know. Maybe because I was my mum's favourite and he wasn't. I don't even think she loved him. I think she was waiting 7 years so I came along. Again, actually I can't tell you what year this is, but like, again, this bad area with these little kind of grass patches between the kind of close to the house and the estate. I still just wanted to, you know, be my brother's best friend. This is really sad. Please don't judge me. But my brother would be playing football with his friends, and I'd just sit there. I think I was a goalpost. I think it was a goalpost, and I remember like they clear. I'd also get to clear the field, you know, whatever was in it. I'm going to come back to that field later on, by the way. And I obviously hadn't done a good job, so I was sitting there, and my brother did this with his coat. He picked something up and he threw it at me, and I caught it. And it was a red comb. I have so many reoccurring dreams with a red comb in them. The red comb's never important, but that's the red comb. And the banshee's comb, are people familiar with this idea of the banshee? She combs her hair, she screams, she cries, she throws her comb at you. It means you're going to die. My brother picks up this comb and throws it at me, and I catch it. And then he tells me, he says, hey, the banshee's coming for Mum. Yeah, he thought that was funny. My dad was away. I slept with my mum for 3 nights after that. And again, like, just don't do that, but we did this thing. My mum passed away from cancer 5 years ago, and her funeral was amazing. It was just the best thing ever. It was such a celebration. But before she passed away, we were in St. Vincent Hospital, and we decided to confess everything. Take a second to think about the things that you've done. That I don't know whether you took money from her poor, whatever you did, we confessed it all. And then we started ratting each other out. It's like, I didn't break the window. He actually broke the window. In that case, I immediately thought of, I broke the window. My brother took the blame for me. And he got the wooden spoon. I don't know. Oh God, it's enough nods. That is the most triggery object in the world. with a wooden spoon across the back of the legs. And my brother did take the blame for me on that one. But we were all gathered around the bed, and my mum was very sick, and we were telling her everything. And I told her about Noel trying the comb and saying that the banshee was going to take her away. She says, I remember that, she says, I remember you coming in, I remember your father was away, I remember you sleeping in the bed. She says, and I remember because you wet the bed every night. I'm being vulnerable with you guys, okay? I'm being vulnerable. And yeah, there was nurses, family, everyone was there, and then suddenly it's like, I'm back to being that little kid that I was. But what I wanted to know is that I wasn't there because I was afraid. Just actually get teary, by the way, to say this, so excuse me. But I was there to protect her. Do you know what I mean? But sorry, this is not part of this. See, when you ask questions, what happened? But that was the fear is very, very real. Do you know what I mean? So to me, that was. But again, for me to understand and to get rid of that fear. Kind of, we do have to, it's really hard, we have to face our fears whatever they are, and I did a lot of mine through educating myself, and again, we're afraid of things we don't understand, whether that's kind of social background, whether that's race, whether that's religion. If we just educate ourselves, if we find that commonality, the fear just goes, do you know what I mean? It does, and I use that. Admittedly, I was afraid of things that weren't real. It was strange as an Irish person when the fairies are used to keep you safe. Like you've got that where my nanny lived was in this like practically in the woods, and it was a tree with a big hole underneath it, and it was we weren't to go near that. That was a doorway to the other world. Just stay away because the fairies would steal you. I nearly swore there. It was a flipping badger set. I think flip is a second badger set. Has anyone here ever had an interaction with a badger? I don't even know if badgers are a thing here. I apologize. They look like this, okay? They look like this. And yeah, the badger, you could have just told me it was a badger set and I would have stayed away from it. But yeah, the fear was very, very real. This is weird. Like we're telling stories, we're talking more about this in the story, but this is storytelling. And now we brought it on to my mother. And also I'm being highlighted what time it is. Thanks, Chris. I'm going to do something very different there. And can we please bring down the lights for this because this is embarrassing. There is no nudity. From me, you are harsh. But yeah, come on, let's make this about my mum. If we can bring down the lights, that'll be great. Because yeah, I don't know, can we? No, you're making me do this as it is. Excellency. Emperor's new. Okay. It's okay, someone's phone just distracted me anyway. Really? Phone. Is it your mom? Because mine can't call me. So I'm not gonna tell you. Really? That's the bit you're going to take from this, not the greater understanding of the Irish people and stories. It's going to be the dead mum jokes. We're all going to die at some point. But my mum, when it comes to storytelling, my mum did encourage me so much. You know, she was the one person who sat with me and listened to me. Again, my dad wasn't around, so like me and her sitting together, you know, watching the American wrestling on a Saturday morning. My mum sending me to make her a coffee when Nature Boy Ric Flair came on. Coming in, she'd already finished the cigarette. Woo! I just hear that. Yeah. But we sat together an awful lot. My mum wasn't from Dublin, she was from the country, and she was the one who took time with me, and she was the person who listened to me. She shared her stories with me as well. And I remember we were going into town. I was going in to get my communion clothes, my first lot of communion clothes. But getting to have time with just me and my mother and going into town together was amazing. But we were getting the bus into town and she started telling me this story. She told me we were to watch out for the old man in town. She said we were going to see this, that I may see this old man. He'd be talking to himself and wandering around, but he wasn't real, he was a ghost. And, oh, that's perfect, wasn't it? No, almost. He had fallen in love with a fairy woman, and he just followed her. He caught a glimpse of this dark-haired beauty. It's one of the she, and he was bewitched, and he couldn't eat, and he couldn't sleep, and eventually he was found dead in a doorway. And if you saw this man, it was actually meant to be a sign of good luck to see this man. However, if you saw the woman walking beside him, it was bad luck. And it meant something awful was going to happen. And I was excited and I was terrified about the idea of seeing either of these people. And I didn't see them. I'm not going to tell you I did, because I didn't. But I remember kind of then in school later on, like kind of you're reading this poem by Patrick Kavanagh, an amazing Irish writer, and reading one of his poems and thinking, that's the story. That guy stole my mum's story. How dare Patrick Kavanagh plagiarise a woman who could barely write, if I'm being honest, but still, they must have met at some point in their life. And they steal that away. Because I believe my mum is the best. And then years later, I remember being in the Cobblestone pub in Smithfield, a great trad bar, and hearing a song and thinking, that's the story, that's my mum's story. These bastards are stealing, everyone is stealing my mum's story. And I looked into it, turns out my mum did not make up the story. But Patrick Kavanagh and these bunch of guys had sat. Again, this is how I deal with awkwardness. Patrick Kavanagh had sat down in a pub with a bunch of guys known as the Dubliners. Have you ever heard of the Dubliners? Yeah. Their song, they took one of his poems and he turned it into the song Raglan Road. So I'm going to attempt to finish this by singing a fairy story. Yeah, this could go wrong. I feel like turning around and doing it that way, because yeah, bear with me. I'm gonna have a go at this, and this is how we'll end things. It seems, and possibly my career. I'm genuinely nervous. I can't breathe properly, and that makes it just worse. On Raglan Road of an autumn day, I saw her first and knew that her dark hair would weave a snare that I might one day rue. I saw the danger, yet I passed along the enchanted way and said, let grief be a fallen leaf at the dawning of the day. On Grafton Street in November we tripped lightly along the ledge of a deep ravine where can be seen the plight of passion pledge. The Queen of Hearts still making tarts, and I'm not making hay. Oh, I love too much, and by such and such is happiness thrown away. Thank you very, very much. You for making me emotional.
It's a Catholic thing.
Yeah, we're talking about this. Do you listen to the podcast, by the way? That was kind of talking about how this book, fear, guilt, and shame are like the extra parents. They are very powerful weapons, more powerful even than a wooden spoon. To finish, I mean, I don't know how to finish one because it doesn't go how I think it'll go. I think I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. But I really do want to say, like, kind of, that it is been absolutely incredible being here. I can see Dr. Brian Allen up there, and I really hope you get where I'm coming from when I say thank you for being on. And to you, yes. And everyone's being so nice. and engage, and you think it's much easier. But you're sitting there, and by taking the time to do that, it means so much to me to be able to do that. But please do, if you have something you want to tell someone, or a story you want to tell, talk to each other. It doesn't have to be an epic tale. Tell each other about the first time you went to the picture house. You know, about the time you stole money for your mother's purse. Talk to her, tell each other stories. Express yourself in any way you can. Be vulnerable, be fearless, and thank you so, so much, guys. Thank you.